Here's some information that may change the way you see the world. Okay, this one definitely did not seem real to me, but poopin', shartin', fartin' in Hindi translates to full terms and conditions in English. To be in the global top 1% by income, you only need to earn $33,000 a year. The closest star to the sun is 4 light years away. Voyager launched 48 years ago, and it hasn't even traveled 1 light day yet. Shaq wanted to take classes in person instead of online to get his master's degree, but the university told him that they needed at least 15 students to open up a physical class. So he paid for 15 of his friends to also earn their master's degrees. Shaq is the ultimate representation of just doing all of the side quests in life. A man was wrongly jailed for 17 years until lawyers found the look-alike actual convict that had the same first name. He got $1 million in compensation for his 17 years. Is that enough?
Things from our 90s childhood kids today wouldn't understand. Cereal boxes with toys in them. Listening to the radio and getting ready to press record when your favorite song was played. Recording a TV program on a blank VHS tape. The dial-up internet, and not being able to get on the internet if someone was on the phone. Looking in your local newspaper for cinema shows or calling the automated phone line. Carrying our music around in one of these. Taking pictures and waiting a week to see them. Getting the football scores from teletext. Booking a holiday at a travel agent. Finding the film to watch at Blockbuster. Circling what you wanted for Christmas in the Argos catalog. Going out to play and coming home when the street lights came on.
Things that only 0.01% of people can do. Touching your nose with your tongue. Yeah, I can't do it. Apparently some people can't just raise one eyebrow. I think I can do it. And apparently some people can't cross their eyes, and I'm pretty sure I just did it. Sneeze with your eyes open. Okay, that's impossible. Nobody can do that. Apparently rolling your tongue is super rare. So apparently I'm a rare person. Apparently some people can bend their hand upwards. How is that possible?
Facts that I wish I didn't know. While you're just scrolling right now, your tongue is most likely suctioned to the roof of your mouth. Memories can get passed down through genes, so that weird fear you have might be a fear that your ancestor had a reason to be afraid of. Most spiders shed an exoskeleton, so whenever you find like a dead spider, it's most likely just an empty husk and there's a slightly bigger spider somewhere nearby. In America, more kids die from gun violence than cancer, and toddlers kill twice as many Americans with guns than terrorists do. Dolphins have the capacity to kill themselves, and they do so by deciding to just not breathe anymore. They suffocate themselves.
Most people believe these 3 things will save your life. They don't. Let's pretend that you're on vacation with some friends in this cabin, and you hear on the news that there's actually a killer on the loose in the woods surrounding your cabin. What do? Instinctively, you're going to want to ditch your friends and just start running into the woods. No shoes, no weapons, no cell phone, no sense of where you're going. But that's actually a terrible idea because the killer is in the woods, and you'd be putting yourself more in harm's way, not less. So you decide to stay put, and then you remember that your friend drove you all to the cabin in their brand new Lamborghini that was working like 5 minutes ago. So why can't you just pile into that and drive away to safety? The problem with that is anytime you're in a cabin in the woods and there's a killer on the loose around your cabin, even if it's a brand new car, it's not going to start. So don't even go out and try it. You're just sitting in the cabin doing nothing when all of a sudden you feel like someone could be watching you and you want to turn around and make sure no one is. Don't turn around, because if you do, the killer will magically appear behind you.
That TikToker named Rory Teasley was murdered the day he posted that chilling final video. So, a little bit of a backstory. Rory was known on TikTok as 22Pump for TV. Before his tragic and unfortunate murder, Rory had amassed over 265,000 followers here on TikTok. As you can see, his videos got a lot of views. He was just posting this wholesome, positive content that he wanted to brighten people's days. So Rory lived in Pontiac, Michigan, which is nearby Detroit. But unfortunately, on January 6, 2022, Rory's life would be ended abruptly. On that day, Rory was playing the game Overwatch with his boyfriend DeQuinn Watkins. Now, at some point during the gameplay that evening, DeQuinn and Rory got into some sort of an argument. And DeQuinn just took this a step far and began to strangle Rory. Eventually, this ended with Rory being strangled to death on the couch in his home. And later that evening, DeQuinn called 911 and reported that his boyfriend was sleeping on the couch and wouldn't wake up. When authorities arrived at the home, they found Rory lying unconscious on the couch. When he was taken to the hospital, yes, he was pronounced dead. So this trial happened pretty quickly, and just this year, DeQuinn pled no contest to second-degree murder charges, and he was quickly sentenced to 15 to 99 years in prison. It's unclear what caused this argument over a video game to escalate into a murder, but sadly Rory died that day, and people online are still trying to preserve his memory by reposting his TikToks and sharing his story. And yeah, this is just another tragic TikTok story that obviously did not need to happen and should never happen.
Diddy just dodged what would have been a life sentence. Despite having over 30 witnesses testifying against him, the jury did not find him guilty on the more serious charges. Racketeering conspiracy, he was found not guilty. Sex trafficking against Cassie Ventura, he was found not guilty. Transportation to engage in prostitution with Cassie, guilty. Sex trafficking of Jane, not guilty. And lastly, transportation to engage in prostitution with Jane, he was found guilty. The jurors apparently couldn't reach an agreement on the racketeering conspiracy, which is one of the more serious crimes, and would have gave him life in prison, which I'm finding so difficult to understand because there was so much evidence just on the racketeering alone. This means that he only faces a maximum potential sentence of 20 years, but it's predicted that he might even get less than that because of his clean criminal history.
3 people that you won't believe exist. This Indian woman has a condition that makes her grow extra fingers and extra toes inside the womb. Altogether, this woman has 31 fingers and toes. And this person's huge jaws is actually from a medical condition. The condition is called cherubism. Doctors were shocked when this man walked into the emergency room with severe chest pain. And after some ultrasounds to see what was causing his pain, they actually found out that this man had 2 hearts.
Scientists have just made the first ever human pig. Scientists at the Salk Institute made a major breakthrough with bioengineering. They have created a part human, part pig embryo with both human and pig DNA. Although this sounds and looks terrifying, this could actually save so many of us. This is because we may now be able to harvest human tissue and organs to address the worldwide shortage of organ donors.
This is the story of the worst shark attack in human history. On July 16, 1945, the USS Indianapolis was on a secret mission to bring parts and machinery to help construct the atomic bombs. These bombs, of course, would end the Second World War just a month later. The ship was in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and en route to a couple of islands off the coast of Asia. And on board the ship was over 1,100 US Navy soldiers. However, on the night of the 16th, a Japanese submarine launched a torpedo which struck the USS Indianapolis. And within just 12 minutes, the entire ship was completely sunken underwater. And about 300 out of the 1,100 men on board couldn't escape the ship in time. And the other 900 or so men were stranded floating in the middle of the ocean. And within a few minutes, it became apparent to the soldiers that there were hundreds of hungry sharks right below them. Screams began to be heard coming from almost every direction in the pitch black darkness, and hundreds of soldiers began to be picked off one by one. When it was all said and done, only 317 men survived the disaster, meaning that close to 600 men were killed by sharks that night, which is why...
This is why you should always trust your gut. In the early 1970s, a college student decided to hitchhike his way home after class. A car pulls up, a man offers him a ride, and he climbs in. As soon as the car started moving, the student felt totally uneasy, like something was wrong but he couldn't quite place it. Without saying anything, he waited till the next time they slowed down and he flung the door open and ran away. 2 years later, he's flicking through TV channels when he comes across this special interview with a death row inmate. And it's just the audio recording, so he hears the interviewer ask the inmate, "Why did you remove all the door handles inside of your car?" The man just goes, "Well, the first time I tried to kill someone, I picked up a college hitchhiker who got smart at some point and jumped out of my car. So, lesson learned, remove all the door handles." When they showed his picture, the student knew immediately that he was supposed to be the first victim of John Wayne Gacy, aka the Killer Clown, who had killed over 30 men and boys in his clown room and stuffed them into his basement.
These are 8 horrifying facts that will probably keep you up at night. Episode 21. Number 1. The black box. In every aircraft, there is something known as a black box. And before every plane crash, the black box stores recordings of passengers screaming before they die. The most common word that black boxes recorded before a crash is the word mama. Number 2. Bodies are sometimes found in hotel beds. Guests from different countries from around the world have reported foul smells in their bedrooms, only to discover a corpse stuffed inside the mattress after sleeping on it for days. Number 3. People who wake up during surgery. Anesthetic awareness. It is a medical term known for when patients wake up mid-surgery and they feel everything, including the pain. But because of the anesthesia, they are unable to move nor speak. Number 4. There are hundreds of active serial killers walking free right now. The FBI estimates that at least 2,000 active serial killers are currently uncaught around the world. Number 5. There's a 1 in 3 chance your house has hidden mold that can affect your brain. Long-term exposure has been linked to hallucinations, memory loss, and paranoia, and most people never find out about the mold until it's too late. Number 6. Sometimes bodies aren't buried, they're stored and forgotten. In some hospital morgues, unclaimed bodies are stacked in freezers for years until they're either cremated without a name or sold for research. Number 7. There are people who fake being dead and live among corpses. They are known as necrosadists. They sneak into morgues or graveyards at night, not to harm, but to feel close to the dead. Number 8. Cameras sometimes capture things the eye can't see. Paranormal investigators have caught unexplained figures, shadows, and even faces in rooms that were completely empty. Some claim it's the only time jinns make themselves visible. If you want more, like and follow for episode 22.
I always knew not to believe everything that I see on social media, but this story about this guy who manipulated thousands of women by pretending to be something he wasn't is absolutely insane. I don't know if you guys have heard about this TikToker who created content preaching about healthy relationships and teaching men how to be better partners, and he portrayed himself as being this caring and respectful man. Well, he recently murdered his ex-girlfriend. The crazy part about this story is that I actually know of a woman who was supposed to fly out from Toronto to Miami to meet this man sometime before he took his ex-girlfriend's life. Thank God she didn't go. This guy's name is Joy Chandranath. He's 29 years old, and this happened in Miami, and he stabbed his ex-girlfriend. She was 24 years old, and her name was Maria Camila Garcia Molina, in her car, and apparently her 3-year-old daughter was in the car and saw everything. Her daughter was found wandering alone on the street, and she was covered in her mother's blood, and they later found Maria's body in her car with stab wounds all over. Police arrested this man after Maria's daughter told them that her Her mother was with Joy, and then she fell asleep. Investigators said that Maria had a restraining order against this man when he began stalking her after she ended things in November 2024. Before her death, Maria found an AirTag in her car, and she caught this man hiding near her house several times. When they arrested him, he had scratches all over his face, and he also had Maria's phone and purse on him, but he said that she had gave it to him that morning. Like I said, I know of someone who met this man on a dating app on Facebook. I guess it's like Facebook dating, and she was supposed to fly out from Toronto to Miami to go meet him, but she completely cut him off before this thing happened, after another girl reached out to her to tell her that he was also talking to her at the same time. And apparently he was talking to so many women at the same time. He was charged with second-degree murder, and he's in the Miami-Dade County Jail, and he has no bond. I think it's very common for people to meet on dating apps nowadays. I mean, I've done it, but it's very important to always be aware and know that there are risks, because you don't know who this person is at the end of the day. People are so unhinged nowadays, and someone can put up this whole facade about themselves on social media or a dating app and you wouldn't even know it. And this is my own personal opinion, but I would never fly out to go meet anyone. I think the risks are a lot higher. You're going to a different country to see someone that you've never seen before. If anything, they're coming here where I feel safe and I have family.
Crazy part is, most people believe that these three things will actually save your life. They don't. Let's pretend you're lost in the desert and you need water and you don't have any. So where are some places you can get water? One commonly held terrible piece of advice is to drink your own pee, because it's mostly made up of water, except there's 5% of that that's all made up of just waste from your body, and even though the urine might keep you alive a little bit longer, you'll ultimately die of kidney failure. So you don't drink your own pee. Instead, you head over to some cactus you see nearby, because you remember reading or hearing in school that you can drink the water inside of cactus. Except, unless it's one really specific kind of cactus, you'll be drinking lots of alkaloids and chemicals that will make you viciously ill, and you'll start vomiting and you'll have diarrhea and you'll die from dehydration much faster. So as you're sitting there wondering what you're going to do next, a venomous snake bites you. And so you instinctively start sucking on the bite to remove the poison, but you can't because it goes right into your bloodstream, and all you'll do is die much faster from infection.
Here's what would happen if you did not blink for 30 days. As your eyeballs start to dry out, tiny particles will settle down on the surface and begin to scratch it. The cornea of your eye is very delicate and it will begin to feel like it's burning. Tears will then begin to flow like a waterfall, trying to wash away all the particles. As the days pass and your cornea dries out, the sharpness of your eyes will decrease. The final result may be irreversible damage that may cause you to lose your eyesight forever. Now comment the longest time you can go without blinking.
Medusa has a real sad story. She didn't always look like the monster we know her as. She was an innocent woman who was a victim of cruelty. She was the most beautiful woman in the world who dedicated her life to worshipping Athena in her temple. But one day, as she was walking by the shore, Poseidon caught a glimpse of her and fell in love. But she rejected his advances and tried to continue her life worshipping Athena at her temple. But within the temple of Athena, Poseidon forced himself onto Medusa. And Athena, who was already quite jealous of Medusa's beauty, basically blamed Medusa for what happened and turned her into the monster we know her as. I actually went deeper into this in my new U tube video. It might help you understand why Perseus, the glorified hero, slayed an innocent woman.
Three true stories behind popular myths. Part 1. Number 3. The Trojan Horse. The tale of the Trojan horse is a famous myth from the Trojan War. This story, however, is believed to be based on real military tactics used during ancient times. Some historians suggest that the horse was not an actual wooden horse, but rather a battering ram or a siege tower. These were common tools used in warfare to infiltrate and break down the defenses of cities, such as Troy. The tale of the Trojan horse has been passed down through generations and continues to be a symbol of deception and strategic warfare. Number 2. King Arthur. The legendary King Arthur, known for his Knights of the Round Table and his noble deeds, is believed to be based on a real historical figure. There are various theories about who this figure might have been. Some suggest he was a Roman military leader who demonstrated exceptional bravery and leadership. Others propose that he was a Celtic warrior who valiantly defended Britain against the onslaught of Saxon invaders. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, the legend of King Arthur continues to captivate audiences worldwide. Number 1. The Fountain of Youth. The myth of a magical spring that restores youth and vitality is widespread across cultures. It's thought to be inspired by real-life rejuvenating practices, such as bathing in hot springs. These natural phenomena were believed to have healing properties, providing relief from various ailments and potentially slowing the aging process. The allure of eternal youth has always been a powerful motif in human mythology and storytelling, and the Fountain of Youth is one of its most enduring symbols.
So some global scientists came together and wrote out what they think are going to be the most threatening issues of 2023. Let's go through it. Number 10 is water. Some people aren't going to have enough, and other people are going to have way too much. It's going to put some stress on agriculture and probably displace a lot of people from their homes. Number 9 is TikTok. Millennials and Gen Z are far more progressive than any other generation we've seen before. With the power of the internet and using that for activism, there's been a big scare in people of power. And if so, that they're still trying to ban the app. Number 8 is America. We're so divided, but it's ranked so low because experts aren't really too panicked about it. The majority of Americans are somewhere in the middle rather than on the really loud extremes. And all those insurrectionist politicians got voted out, so no constitutional crisis here. Yet. At number 7, we got stunted global development. The last 50 years have seen a lot of growth in terms of education, healthcare, and safety, but the middle class is shrinking just as fast as it appeared. And experts say in the almost 3 years it's been since the pandemic that we've gone backwards in human development about 5 years. Number 6 is going to be energy. Europe isn't buying Russia's oil anymore, and they're not going to. And this is driving up prices on a global scale. That and gas companies just blatantly overcharging us. Number 5 is Iran. They were full of demonstrations after the morality police murdered Mahsa Amini. And ever since, the women there have been fighting for their liberation. But the government isn't listening to the words of their people and instead just blaming America. And the president directly helping Putin invade Ukraine is just the extra added layer of what the Number 4 is inflation. Quarantine stopped the economy, and when it started again, some parts were allowed to operate before others. So when people were finally ready to spend money, they couldn't because of supply chain disruptions. They're saying that prices are going to continue to go up, and it's rich countries that are probably going to be okay, but these poorer countries are most likely going to be on the brink of collapse. Number 3 is misinformation. Now, it's not the intention of social media or these AI tools to make people believe in conspiracy theories, but it is the unintended consequence of the business model. And because of this, the whole democracy thing is being questioned not just in the United States, but around the whole world. Number 2 is the fact that Xi Jinping has gotten rid of term limits and made it to where he is the leader of China for life. He has surrounded himself with Communist Party yes-men and even kicked out the previous president. This isn't even how China was ran just 10 years ago, and the chances of this going down a dark path are very high. At number 1, we got Russia going rogue. Putin is completely isolated and shut them off from the rest of the world, while they're completely losing the war that they started. They're seen as war criminals, but they're not going anywhere. Nobody's gonna kick Putin out of office. They have the most nuclear warheads out of anybody in the world. Because of this, NATO is consolidating and tensions are high.
I want to talk about one of the darkest videos on the internet. This is a 70-year-old video of a man suffering from rabies, and it has kind of a crazy backstory. Now, I talked about this video in an episode I just did for the Heart Starts Pounding podcast about how terrifying rabies is, but this was a video put out by the U.S. Army Medical Service in 1955. It features an Iranian man who was bitten by a rabid wolf that attacked his village. All in all, there were 29 men in this village that got rabies from this wolf. So the US Army filmed this training video over the next several days to show people what it was like when someone contracts rabies and doesn't get the vaccine in time. And one of the scariest parts of the video is right here when the man starts showing the scariest symptom of rabies, which is hydrophobia. Hydrophobia is a fear of water that is incredibly common in rabies patients. Basically, thinking about water or even looking at it causes really painful spasms in the person's throat, so it looks like they're afraid of it. And that's actually why some people used to think that rabies was demonic, because priests would throw holy water on patients and they would have these really extreme reactions to it. Eventually, after a few days, the man did succumb to the illness because rabies is almost 100% fatal if not treated with a vaccine pretty much immediately. And if you want to learn more about the history of rabies or how terrifying it is, or even some more illnesses that kind of hijack your brain, check out this episode of the Heart Starts Pounding podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
He would dress up as a clown for children, but no one knew he had 27 bodies underneath his home. John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17th of 1942 in Chicago. The household that he grew up in was not good at all because his father, who was a World War II veteran, would constantly beat him. At the age of 11, John had a playground accident, and this led him with a blood clot in his brain, and this would trigger blackouts. He seemed to be always socially isolated, and he always wanted approval from his father. By 1966, John turned his life around. He got married, had 2 stepchildren, and even owned a KFC franchise. To everyone around John, he seemed to be charming, always ready to lend a hand, but this was all a front. That same year, John had lured a teenage boy to his home and SA'd him. When that teenage boy tried to report the crime, John hired another teenager to go and beat him up. Despite those efforts, the case moved forward and John pled guilty and he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Out of those 10 years, he only served 18 months. While in prison, John became the head cook and he charmed the prison staff and they gave him early parole. His wife ended up divorcing him, his father passed away, and he wasn't allowed to go to his funeral. In 1970, he returned to Chicago with a clean slate, but he had some sinister plans. In 1972, John remarried and moved into a small home in Norwood Park. He launched a contracting business called PDM Contractors and focused on hiring teen boys. Most of these teenage boys came from broken homes, were runaways, all were vulnerable. From the outside looking in, John seemed like a great neighbor. He would always host barbecues. He would even dress up as a clown and go to children's hospitals to cheer up children, but no one knew that he was making a torture chamber. On December 11th of 1978, 15-year-old Robert Piest vanished after his shift at a pharmacy. He told his mom he was going to speak with a contractor about a job, but he never returned home. Detectives were called and police showed up at John's home. John denied ever meeting Robert, but once they did a background check on him, it showed his previous conviction. Once they got a search warrant to search his home, they found IDs from missing boys, they found a book called Pretty Boys Must Die, handcuffs, clothing, and a high school class ring from one of the missing boys. There was a crawl space in the home and it reeked, but John claimed it was just the sewage. Once they checked the crawl space, they found human remains. Police recovered 27 bodies underneath his home, 1 was in the yard, and 5 more were in a nearby river. John would lure victims with promises of alcohol, work, or clown tricks. John would use chloroform to knock them out, he would torture them, SA them, and strangle them. He would bury them underneath his floorboards, put on a smile, dress up as a clown, and go to children's hospitals. On February 6 of 1980, John's trial began and his defense claimed insanity. Finally, on March 13th, after 2 hours of deliberation, he was found guilty and sentenced to death.
Let me tell you some things that you probably didn't know. A man named Joel Berger married a woman named Ashley King, and Burger King paid for the wedding. A 3-year-old boy playing with his dad's metal detector found a 16th century gold pendant that was worth $4 million. In Norway, every citizen's tax record is public, so you can just literally check how much money your neighbor makes. Norway is also the first and only country to ban deforestation. There was a baby born at 7:11 p.m. on July 11th, weighing 7 pounds 11 ounces, that received $7,111 for college from 7-Eleven. Single women own more homes in the United States than single men. A woman had her 20 boyfriends buy her 20 iPhones, then sold them to make a down payment on a house. That's how so many single women are buying the houses. The webcam was literally invented by 3 people who wanted to remotely check their coffee's pot level without having to walk to their break room.
She took the life of her coworker over some Lululemon leggings. On March 12th of 2011, just before 8 a.m., Rachel walked to a Lululemon store in Maryland where she was the manager at. Once she got to the front door, she noticed it was already unlocked. Once Rachel went inside, she noticed that the clothing racks were scattered all over the floor, mannequins were in pieces on the floor, and she could hear a faint moan in the back of the store. Rachel was terrified. She turned around, ran outside, and called 911. Right next door to that Lululemon was an Apple store, and a guy named Ryan worked there as a security guard, and he saw how frantic Rachel was, and he told her that he would go inside to see what was going on. Once Ryan went inside, he followed a trail of blood to the back room, and that's when he found the store supervisor, Jana, unalived. She was lying face down, a rope was around her neck, and a toolbox was sitting on top of her. As Ryan turned around to leave, he saw another employee, Brittany Norwood, and she was lying in the employee bathroom. Her hands were zip-tied, her shirt was pulled up, and there was a Lululemon t-shirt around her neck. Although Jana did not survive this attack, Brittany was okay. Once police arrived, Jana was pronounced dead at the scene, and she suffered from 331 wounds from 5 different weapons, including a wrench and a hammer. 200 of those wounds were on her face and her neck, and 100 of them were defense wounds. Jana was alive for the entire attack until a fatal stab wound hit her spinal cord. As for Brittany, she had a gash on her forehead, she received stitches for it, and was released from the hospital that same day. Everyone just assumed that this was a robbery gone wrong, but this was far from the truth. On the night of the attacks, Jana and Brittany were working the closing shift together, and around 9:30 p.m. they closed up and left. Once they left, Brittany had realized she left something back inside of the store, and since Jana was the only one with the keys, she asked her to come back to open the door for her. Jana unlocked the door and disabled the alarm. As Jana and Brittany were looking around the store, 2 masked men came in, and they were all wearing black. Allegedly, these guys beat Jana to death, SA'd both of the girls, and let Brittany live because she was more fun to do it with. Apparently, this was Brittany's story to police, but police weren't really buying it. When Brittany told police that there was 2 masked men that came in, they started to investigate the place and only saw 2 footprints, which would be Brittany's shoes and a men's size 14 shoes. There was no evidence of SA from either woman, and on Brittany, it wasn't her own blood, it was Jana's. Brittany was caught in a lie, and eventually the truth came out. On the night of the attacks, Jana saw Brittany stuff a pair of Lululemon leggings in her purse and confronted her about it. Once they locked up the store, Jana got in her car, called her manager Rachel to tell her what she had saw Brittany do. A few minutes later, Jana received a call from Brittany telling her she had left something in the store, and that's when Jana turned around to go open the store for her. While Brittany pretended to search for her item, she attacked Jana from behind. She stabbed, beat, and choked Jana for 17 minutes. That night, employees at the Apple store nearby could hear screaming, and they just figured it was nothing. They thought it was just drama going on at the Lululemon store. Once Brittany took Jana's life, she went into her car and moved it. Meanwhile, she was thinking of a plan to stage the scene. She grabbed Jana's blood and put it all over her face, and she cut a hole in the crotch of her leggings. Finally, she grabbed a men's size 14 shoe and walked around the back room to leave footprints to hopefully throw off police. Once Brittany was all done, she zip-tied herself and laid down on the bathroom floor, waiting to be discovered 10 hours later. Brittany ended up being arrested about a week later, and she admitted to everything, that she had just lost it at the heat of the moment. Brittany was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.